Well, here's one that can cause a few arguments. Doom 3, an ambitious sequel that took the series into a whole new era of gaming. But as we all know, taking such a left turn with a sequel to the most iconic shooter of the 90s is going to piss more than a few people off. Now, I'm not going to sit here and crap on about the original Doom. You've heard it all, and yeah, the game's fucking great. And Doom 2 isn't fucking around either. But even in 2004, 10 years after Doom 2, releasing a slowed down and more horror-focused sequel to a series this beloved is just as risky as it sounds. I played Doom a bit as a kid, but not the sequel. And as far as Doom 3 goes, I mean, I played it at a friend's house like 15 years ago, and it was pretty cool then, so I'm going into this as a bit of a casual, and I just want to see how the game holds up on its own, so let's see how she goes. Alright, let's see how a story-driven Doom game holds up. We start off with some backstory on the Union Aerospace Corporation, the largest corporate entity in existence. While they started on weapons development, they've expanded into other fields, including other scientific endeavours. I wonder what that could be. Basically, these guys have unlimited money to do whatever the fuck they want. Anyway, after this, we see a ship arriving at their Mars base. One of the fellas, a guy named Swan, seems to be there on some pretty serious business.
I can't believe it's come to this. I didn't want to come here.
He left you no choice.
True, but this is the last time. I'm tired of running damage control every time he makes a mess.
After overhearing a bit of their conversation, we're introduced to our Doom guy for the game. We take a look around and start heading through the base. Eventually we're given our PDA, allowing us to collect files, recordings, and security passes. Pretty essential shit. The fella also tells us to go meet up with Sergeant Kelly for our orders, but along the way we see Swan having a chat with our obvious bad guy for the game, Betruga.
Problems.
Oh, really? Do I need to remind you of the groundbreaking work that we're doing here?
No, but I've been authorized by the board to look at everything.
The board authorized you? The board doesn't know the first thing about science. All they want is something to make them more money, some product. Don't worry, they'll get their product.
Now this guy's obviously completely unhinged, and I love how on edge all the workers are before everything goes to shit. Eventually we meet up with Sergeant Kelly, who gives us a quick briefing on our mission and sends us to the comms facility to search for a missing scientist.
I programmed this sentry to guide you to the maintenance elevator. I hope you follow the sentry better than you've followed orders so far.
Yeah, fuck off. I got you, didn't I? After we pick up our weapons from security, we make our way to find this bloke, but the attitude from the scientists isn't too encouraging. Despite all that, we eventually confront the scientist we're looking for, who is none too keen to be found.
Let me get this communication out. They have to be warned while there is still time. I can't let... You don't know what I've seen. You can't possibly understand or comprehend.
The devil is real.
I know. I built his cage.
I'm getting abnormal readings here.
Now the game's had a slow build up to the chaos, and I think it's fucking great. Once all hell breaks loose, everything immediately goes to shit, and you'll be shooting your way through everything. The game absolutely nails the atmosphere while you make your way back through the base. Anyway, we managed to add to our inventory pretty quickly, picking up a shotgun as well as a machine gun on our travels, before eventually chatting to Sergeant Kelly over a comm screen, as he's conveniently not around. He gives us some orders to link up with Bravo team and send out a transmission, so we're off to fuck some shit up and maybe go a little crazy along the way. We overhear a conversation Swan is having with Betruga, who seems to think that everything is under control and doesn't want Swan involved, but they aren't having a bar of it.
You understand?
Yes, Betruga. I think I do understand.
Okay, plan B.
We've got our own shit to worry about though, which mostly involves killing everything that moves, and finding keys to get through doors. Pretty standard shit. Oh, and we run into the odd survivor, but they aren't us, so they obviously get their asses kicked. We do get a call from another bloke who's in a little bit of a pickle, so we meet up with him and have ourselves a mini escort mission. This doesn't involve much, it's mostly just taking on single enemies until we get to the end and the bloke dies in the most uneventful way possible. I mean, I'll just go fuck myself then. We get a quick update from the sergeant as to the whereabouts of Bravo team, but things are getting worse around the base, so we've got to hurry. We do help out another scientist, which gets us some supplies, and hey, this bloke doesn't die. Good job! We do catch up to Swan again and see his mate's gotten his hands on a BFG like an absolute Chad. We head in and get into a little boss fight that is pretty bloody easy. While we're waltzing through though, Bravo team isn't exactly afforded the same luxury. Now they were carrying a military transmission card that we need to get our hands on to be able to send a distress signal to the fleet and get reinforcements. Yeah, I just had to show that because it was really fucking cool. Anyway, the sergeant mentions that apparently we definitely don't want Swan getting his hands on the card. Something about being a shit bloke? I don't know, I wasn't listening. However, after we sort out the reactor, we see him through the security camera and find one of the soldiers survived and has the card. Now, this bloke must have been tough as nails to survive this situation, so it's pretty funny that when we rock up, he immediately dies after giving us the card. We don't have time to stop though, so we head towards the communications facility, keeping an eye out for Swan. It appears Swan has destroyed the system, so we have to find another way, and once we do, he urges us not to call in reinforcements. I don't know, I kinda want to keep this party going. Betruger has a quick word with us, and he's pretty happy about having more victims. I mean, look at the enjoyment he gets out of this. We run into some pleb who was just waiting for a mate.
I don't know what the hell's going on, but I bet it has to do with those artifacts we were digging up at Site 2. I bet they're somehow connected with those things.
Gee, nothing gets past you, does it? Good thing that's where we're going, and after kicking around for like 30 minutes, the sergeant finally reaches out to us and tells us that the plans have changed, and we're not safe? Are you sure, mate? I think we have this covered. Anyway, we run into a scientist who's one of the people responsible for opening up the Hell portal. Apparently the protective something or other failed, I don't know. And after Petruga took an ancient artifact into the portal, Hell followed him out. We need to help the scientist get the teleporter working again, so it's back to ass kicking time while we find a plasma thingo he needs. While we're busy with that, we come across a few blokes who aren't looking too flash. Fucking hardcore, mate. I don't think you'll be able to walk that off. Oh, and if you remember to use this code from the PDA way earlier in the game, you get access to the BFG, but I'll talk more about that later. We of course make it through to the teleporter, and shit ain't looking too flash over here either, and we see a bit more of the experiments that they've been doing on the creatures before everything went to shit. Now this room is meant to have some cube thingo, and the scientists believe that it was a weapon, so of course Petruga announces over the intercom that he's got his hands on it, because fucking of course he does. Now we have to get it back. We catch up to Petruga and have to chase him through a teleporter, which eventually leads us to the Hellgate. These guys look pretty tough, but I've got a BFG. Ah, shit. Ah, crap, now I'm in hell. But fuck, that looks pretty cool. Now, while we're in hell, we have to collect all our weapons again before duking it out with the big baddie. You have to take out his mates, or else you can't damage him, but once he's down, you get the Soul Cube and head back through to the Mars base. Back at the base, we run into Swan, who's in pretty bad shape. He tells us the sergeant has gone crazy, and his bodyguard, Campbell, has gone after him. Campbell isn't doing too flash himself, and the sergeant has gotten his hands on his BFG. He seems to have become a tank, but that ain't a worry for us. We sort him out and get the BFG again, and head off to stop this shit from getting any worse. We're pretty OP now, so getting out of the caverns isn't too difficult when we can just annihilate these big guys. We're still finding survivors too.
Keycard. It'll help you get to the surface. I'm not going anywhere until I know all those things are dead.
Shit, mate, suit yourself. Oh, and I totally embarrassed myself with this crane. I swear it took me like 5 tries. Oh, and needless to say, these guys are not keen on me being down here. Anyway, we walk through the "this is the last boss, so here's a bunch of ammo" room, pass through this tablet room with a nice little reference, and move on to find the big guy. Now where is that fucker? He can't be that... Ah, shit. After running around in circles, fucking up baddies, we take down the big boy with the Soul Cube and seal the gate to hell. We get found by the reinforcements, but there's just one question. Where's Petruga?
He's nowhere to be found, sir.
I actually really enjoyed this. The whole thing around unchecked scientific research uncovering unspeakable horrors just speaks to me on so many levels and actually serves the game really well. So let's see how the rest of the game holds up. Alright, so I don't need to crap on about how awesome the original Doom game is, you all know it, but for the supposed disappointing game in the series, Doom 3 brings a lot to the table. Straight off the bat, the move to proper 3D takes the series to the next level, and graphically this game is incredible. Well, mostly incredible. The character models can look a little bit funny these days with the line down their skin suit. But the world that this game places you in, the space station, hell, it just looks incredible. And let's not forget the monsters. The move to 3D let the monster designs be fully realised. For 2004, it couldn't get much better. The crusty old sprites that we all know and love now get to be a true menacing threat, and Doom 3 is really able to take the original ideas of the early 90s to the next level and bring it to an entirely new audience. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be some expert. I'm fucking hopeless with the monster names, but the point is, they're fucking awesome. But moving on to other changes, we now have a story to move the game along. This is obviously something heavily criticised over the years, as the story didn't just take a backseat in the previous titles, it was completely irrelevant. This being my first time fully playing through this game, I have to say, I felt it served the game and the world pretty well. I mean, the characters are all cold and to the point, which suits the cold, corporate, industrial world we're put in. I actually enjoyed the build-up at the beginning, getting immersed in the environment, and while it's not very Doom, not being a hardcore fan probably helped me settle into that better. The PDA logs you find, both essential and non-essential, are really cool and add to the world building. On top of having some random little things like advertisements or emails between people on the base, they can play a major role in the game. You'll be needing to find entries for passwords to access supply lockers, but you'll also get door passwords or security clearance that is essential to progress through the game. It was great finding an entry mentioning the BFG in a particular room that you'll find later on in the game and using the password mentioned in that entry to unlock the door. Overall, I think it was a neat addition to the game, and getting a glimpse into what is a pretty shitty environment makes hell not seem nearly as bad. With that said, you'll meet plenty of NPCs in person that don't seem much happier. Everyone is just kinda doing their job, and when shit gets hectic, they're either turning into zombies, or worse. Either way, they're probably gonna end up dead. It is neat being able to interact with them though, and seeing how everything operates before all hell breaks loose is something I find really interesting, even if I was super keen to get onto the shooty stuff. Now here's where the game really underwhelmed people. If you were going into this game expecting some giant arena shooter with tons of enemies, I can see why you'd be disappointed. With that said, this is definitely not going to result in me saying this is a bad game, but looking at it from the perspective of Doom fans back when this game released, it is easy to see what people could feel disappointed by. There's plenty of variety in the enemies, I mean...
It's Luke, and Obi-Wan, and my favorite Chewie, they're all here!
And the stronger horror tones are a massive strong point as its own thing. But that begs the question, does its own thing hold up? I would say yes, mostly. With the enemy variety being outlined as a strong point, a weak point would be the boss fights, or lack thereof. Now this isn't a complete letdown as the enemies that are here are great to take down, but aside from the end fight, anything else just feels like you're coming up against slightly tougher regular enemies. I feel like this would be a little bit more of a challenge if you were fighting more than just a handful of blokes at once, but when things are dialed back like this, it could have used a couple more notable bosses to keep you in check. I mean, I've seen people criticise this game for being too easy, and I guess the slower pace contributes to that, but the foundation of classic Doom is still here. Except for the torch. Some people hate the torch. I love the torch. I wish I was playing it like the classic version and not on the shoulder, but I'm weird like that. Feel free to roast me about it. I think most of the weapons are cool too. There's a decent list you'll be playing around with. Most of them are great to use. The pistol you'll ditch pretty quickly, as it's only really useful when you don't have anything else, and the shotgun is, a bit shit. I mean, the spray on this thing is way over the top, and is only slightly redeemed by the gore it can result in. Aside from that, everything else is great. The assault rifle will be a mainstay, and the chain gun is great to pull out when you've got plenty of ammo. I generally don't care about plasma guns, but the plasma gun in this game is satisfying and effective when getting rid of tougher enemies. A rocket launcher is usually pretty hard to fuck up, but grenades I only really felt obliged to use because I had an overabundance of them. It can be a little bit like that when you don't have a dedicated grenade button. The BFG definitely does what you expect. It fucking kicks ass. I was a little bit more conservative with it initially and ended up losing one for a while before I got to properly use it. But that's a bit on me, I guess. When you need a hand clearing outer space, it'll surely help out though. That being said, the Soul Cube is a standout. Once you kill enough enemies, you'll be able to use the cube to insta-kill any enemy and bring back your health. Super fucking useful when things are getting a little bit how you going. Overall, I'd say combat is tight, and even with less enemies to deal with at once, the action doesn't feel dull. My only big criticism with the mechanics is that you can't change weapons mid-reload, which is super frustrating, but not game-breaking at least. The only other little parts in the gameplay you'll notice is a few berserk power-ups, which could just not be in the game and nothing would really be lost, and adrenaline, which is just to boost your stamina. Oh yeah, this game has a stamina bar, but it may as well just not be in the game. These additions feel like a bit of an afterthought, but aren't going to really be detrimental to the overall experience. Now a quick note, obviously I did play the 360 BFG edition of this game. I only really wanted to cover the base game, but it's worth mentioning the extras in this release are super cool. Adding the extra Doom 3 content, as well as both the first two games, is really neat, and given how cheap this release is, it's definitely worth a pickup. With that being said, let's wrap this one up. I actually really enjoyed Doom 3, and while I can see why people may have hated it or found it disappointing as a Doom game, the overall approach just kind of worked for me. As a Doom game, it's always going to be the odd one out in the series, but for what it does wrong as a Doom game, it easily makes up for by being a great horror action shooter in its own right. So with that in mind, I'm going to have to give this one an 8 out of 10. Go suss it out if you're into horror style action shooters. Go to hell! That's all from me today. I'll catch you next time.